Hey guys, Dantix here. This is the perfect no-tech commitment fighter you can build. You might have seen my last video in which I go through my design for the perfect ship overall, but one that requires a high level as well as rank 4 of both piloting and starship design. This one you can build very early on in your adventure and it doesn't have any requirements. Yes, you heard right, none. Yet it puts out a ton of damage. It's the fastest and most maneuverable ship you can make in the game. It's surprisingly tanky. It has all of the habs you need, including all of the crafting tables, but all without any unsightly ladders and holes in the floors and roofs which ruin your ship's interior. Best of all, it only costs around 170,000 to make, much less if you use different weapon systems. It's made in a way to completely hide all the vulnerable modules like the reactor, shields and grav drive inside the ship, while keeping the form looking crisp and sexy. But it's so finely tuned that adding even one more module will reduce its maneuverability. As you get higher ranks of relevant skills, you can upgrade your reactor and engines so you can add better weapons and have the thrust to support heavy cargo bays. Keep in mind that a higher reactor level engine will have a lower top speed, so this is the ultimate low entry ship. It took me longer than I cared to admit to perfect this, so let's jump in and see just how to build this beast. But first, a tour of the ship, and what better place to start than the cockpit. Let's get up out of our seat. This cockpit doesn't have a lot of storage, but it's the perfect weight ratio to keep the maneuverability. Oh, hi Sarah, nice of you to join us. The first hab is the workshop, and we have the industrial workbench, we have the spacesuit workbench, and we have the weapons workbench. The next is the infirmary, and it gives us access to the research lab and the pharmaceutical lab. And if we go straight down, we get the all-in-one hab, which has access to creating food items at the galley. And in order to exit the ship, we just need to go out this way, or if we connect to another ship, just this way. So it's all one straight line, very well made, great form factor, nothing is disturbed, just straight ahead, that's all you need to do. And you can see your crew at all times, which is nice. Hello. And let's exit the ship. Here we are on the outside. Now you can use the disabled on-ramp or the stairs. And we can see that the ship is very low to the ground and has no clutter. There's no way of accessing any of the internal organs from the bottom here. We have the docker and that's it. It's a completely smooth form factor. Now let's get into how we actually build the ship. Now the best place to build your ship is at the ship builder console in your outpost. Now if you don't have one, can't afford to make one, or simply don't want to invest in outposts, then you can follow the instructions in my video below for finding all of the manufacturer specific locations where you can purchase their parts. You just build the shell of the ship first, like so. You build a Demios cockpit, for example. Just build a shell, put everything there, and then get the parts that you want from that manufacturer, save it, and then fly to the next manufacturer, and so on until you have all the parts that you need. But let's start with how to build this ship. First off, it is quite compact and quite complicated, so you're going to need to go step by step with me, and the best way to do that is to pull it apart. So let's start with the cockpit. I'm using the Hope Tech Armstrong 10 cockpit. This is the first version of the Hope Tech cockpits. So you need to go to Hope Town to get this one if you don't have access to it in a manufacturer that you're at. The reason we're using this one is it has the least amount of mass, and we need to be very tight with how much mass we use in this ship, because you'll see below here we have a mobility of 100. If I was to add a cockpit that's slightly heavier, for example the Armstrong R cockpit instead of the 10, you'll notice we go down to 99 mobility, so it is quite tight. So let's go back. Alright, so we need this Armstrong 10 cockpit, so we'll drag that over here. Now the next thing you want is the Demios Workshop 2x1 hab. You can use any 2x1 hab that you want as long as it is the workshop module, and you use all the same ones just so it aesthetically looks good if you're traveling all the way through them. Then let's grab the Shroud Infirmary. The reason I'm using the Shroud one is because it just simply looks the best. If you can't get the Demonos Workshop and the Shroud Infirmary habs, then just use all of the same one like I mentioned, just for that aesthetic. So we've grabbed the first 2 habs, go underneath the ship, and you'll notice that we have an all-in-one berth. The all-in-one has the ability to craft food items, so grab that one. And also grab the slim docker to attach to the bottom. So the slim docker you might need to look around for if you don't have access to it at the workshop that you're at. But find this one and press your flip key to put it on the bottom of this hab here. So therefore they can access through the ship through that docker there, the bottom. And then we have all of the engines, we have all of the internal workings here. So what we'll do is, before we go through all of that stuff, I might just take some of the hull here and start stacking it on top of each other so you can see how it's built. So first we get the Demos and we'll pop it here. So make sure you get the 4 version of this, Demos cowling, pop it on the top. Then we want the Demos hull A, and we want to pop it on top of that. And then we want the Demos hull A again, and pop it on the top. Now I'm just going to pull these apart here just so you can kind of see what I'm grabbing. But I've got the shield module next, and I pop that here. And I've got the Helios 300 grav drive, and I pop that here. And then I've got a reactor, and I pop that on top. So you'll see that the internal workings are within the ship itself, completely safe from enemy fire. Now, I'm using a Helios 300 grav drive. That's because it has the most amount of thrust possible for the lowest amount of mass without any requirements. If we were to look at the different grav drives here, you'll notice that the 400 version requires Starship Design Rank 1. So this is an upgrade. If you were to get Starship Design Rank 1, then you can upgrade it from 300 to 400. And the same goes for the reactor. This is just the best mass to power generated ratio that we can get without hitting any requirements. So that is the next layer. And then we want to pull off this engine and pop it there. So that's the full inside working of this ship. Grab another one of the engines and pop it there. Now these engines are the Amun 3 engines. So these just give the most amount of thrust, the most amount of maneuvering thrust, while only taking 2 max power each. It just looks cool at the back to have 6 engines versus having 4 if you were to have the 3 powered ones. And it also just looks great with the design. Okay, so that is the first skeleton section here. Now we need to build around that skeleton. The first step is we're going to grab these engines and just set them aside here. So we need 6 engines total. And then we grab our Stability Pro landing bay. Now, this landing bay will connect into this all-in-one berth via the side, and then below that, the docker is there. So it just kind of keeps everything nice and neat and together. These Stability Pro landing bays just so happen to look a lot like the AccuLander 11 landing gear ports. So these are landing gear we need to actually support the ship to keep it stable. So we'll pop them on the side like so, and then we'll grab the other 3 and pop them on the side like so. So you can see here that we have 3 on this side here, and we've got 2 on this side here, and the third just kind of is the landing bay. It just kind of blends in with the landing gear itself, which is excellent. Then we grab the Nova Galactic Nova Cowling 2Ls, and we pop them here, which just kind of caps off the blunt nature of these AccuLanders. Then we want to start building upwards a little bit and start covering the vital organs. So we'll grab the Shroud Cowling 1LAST, and we'll make sure that it's flipped, not outwards. We'll make sure it's flipped inwards. So we can actually attach something to this node here. We'll do the same for one here, and one here, and one here. Then what we want to do is make the wings. Now the wings are perfectly designed to fit within that weight ratio, but build them off to the side first before you snap them on. So we have the shroud engine bracer, we have the shroud cowling, and we have the shroud cap A. Snap them all together like so, and then double click and click and drag them onto the cowling that we had made before. There we go, and now we have the wings. And then we want to, we'll save the weapons for later. Then we want to cover this all up. So we'll grab a shroud cap A port 4 top and pop it there. Then we'll grab the other one and pop it there. We'll be starting to cover the internal workings. We now have 4 extra node points thanks to the landing bay and the landing gears and the shroud cowling. So let's just pop our engines now perfectly there. So we have our 6 engines. Then we want to cap this all off. So let's get the Demios cowling 4, similar to the one we have here, and pop it on top. And then we want to get the Demios hulls and pop them over all the inner workings of the ship to cover them up. And then we want to get the Demios cowling aft and flip it so it's facing the back, and we've capped off the top. Now we want to just cover up the skeleton. It just so happens that the M30 Ulysses helium-3 tanks also provide us fuel, as well as looking similar to the Nova cowlings. So we'll use those as like a little skeleton to cover the inner workings. And there we go, we've capped it off completely. So this is once again the Nova cowling 1Ls, and these are the M30 Ulysses helium-3 tanks. So we'll have 4 of those tanks, providing 100 grav jump fuel each. And then the last thing we need to do is get our weapon systems. Now with the weapon systems, you can use any weapon you want. It's really up to you. I'm using 4 of these Vanguard Obliterator auto projectors. These have a long range, a 3000 range. They have a high fire rate, but they do the equal amount of damage to hulls and shields. So if you like particle weapons, these are very good. However, you can swap those out for any weapons you want. Like you could have ballistics and lasers, for example, or you could have missile systems, but I just prefer to have these 4 here. But if you want more firepower, you can put on better weapons or better quality weapons. These just so happen to give us the right amount of power, so we can have everything powered up without having to power too much down. Maybe just the engines every now and then, and that's about it. So first thing we want to do is get the Horizon weapon mount. We want to drag that and put that onto the node of our Shroud Eklund cowling. That will give us 2 node points to attach these weapons, and that's what we will do. And we will do the same over on the other side. And there we go. The ship is fully completed. Just make sure you check that you've assigned your weapons. Make sure that you name your ship something interesting. And that is it. Enjoy the fastest, most deadly basic ship you can make. Thanks so much for watching, guys. What do you think? Will you be building this monster or a variant of your own? We'd love to see what you come up with, so feel free to post pictures or videos on my Discord. For everything Starfield, check out all my guides. Until next time, ciao friends.